Roughly 20,000 emails connected to Jeffrey Epstein have finally been made public, and they reportedly involve some of the most influential men in America. As the names circulate everywhere online, Joe Rogan is digging into just how deep this goes and why Epstein was ultimately silenced. Was he actually working as an intelligence operative? And if that's true, who was he really answering to?
All the information that's getting disclosed, supposedly this administration, what do you have the least faith that we're going to come to
Epstein,
a conclusion?
for sure.
Epstein.
And I think it's because of Israel. I mean, when you really dig into Epstein, his entire network was Israel. It was clearly. Like Ehud Barak was the ex-prime minister and the ex-head of Israeli intelligence. Leslie Wexner was one of the most powerful pro-Israeli philanthropists. The whole organization was Israel. So and I'm not saying it was all of Israel.
It was all an intelligence gathering and
it was targeting Americans. It was targeting American officials and the American president.
Right.
And the CIA does have interest in those targets too. Elements in the CIA does. Certainly they had help from the CIA, and certainly they had help from these other organized crime and intelligence operations. But you don't, like, so for example, Dan Bongino, the new, deputy director of the FBI, he recently had this clip that went all around where he said on camera that he had a source that he trusted deeply. And he's an informed guy. He was at a Fox News interview, and the source told him that Epstein was working for an intelligence agency in the Middle East. And I don't know which one, but someone in the Middle East. And to be fair, we all already knew this. We already know who he worked for. At least I think so. But I'm looking at, okay, Dan, so if this giant group of Jewish billionaires is running a sex trafficking operation targeting American politicians and business people and stuff, you think they're working with an Arab or Muslim nation in the Middle East? Like, you think that Leslie Wexner is devoting his entire life to philanthropies on behalf of Israel, but then he's going to work for Saudi Arabia when he's doing this?
Epstein had ties with extremely powerful individuals. People like Bill Gates, Peter Thiel, Bill Clinton, and according to some of the messages, even Donald Trump had connections with him. The leaked files include tens of thousands of emails, calendar notes, and additional records covering the period from the mid-2000s all the way up to 2019, with even earlier schedules unsealed in 2024 and 2025. They reveal Epstein frequently setting up meetings, private dinners, and introductions with billionaires, former presidents, tech company founders, lawyers, academics, members of the royal family, and media figures. Shockingly, Trump's name appears nearly 16,000 times throughout the documents.
Democrats released those emails obtained from the Epstein estate, showing the convicted ex-offender discussing Trump and seeming to suggest he had information he never shared. In a 2011 exchange with his co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein writing the quote, "dog that hasn't barked is Trump," adding one of his victims spent hours with Trump at Epstein's home, but that Trump had never once been mentioned. Maxwell replying, "I have been thinking about that." House Republicans in the White House identifying the victim as Virginia Giuffre, who once worked at Trump's spa at Mar-a-Lago. Giuffre said she never saw Trump do anything inappropriate. She died by suicide earlier this year. In a 2018 text exchange, someone whose name is redacted wrote to Epstein, "It will all blow over. They're really just trying to take down Trump and doing whatever they can to do that." The context of the message is unclear, but Epstein responding, "It's wild because I am the one able to take him down." Trump and Epstein were friends for more than a decade.
Have you socialized with him?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18?
Though I'd like to answer that question, at least today, I'm going to have to assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights, sir.
After Epstein's arrest in 2019, Trump said he hadn't spoken to him in 15 years. He insists he broke off the friendship when he learned Epstein and Maxwell were luring away young female staffers who worked at Mar-a-Lago.
He stole people that worked for me. I said, "Don't ever do that again." He did it again, and I threw him out of the place, persona non grata. I threw him out, and that was it.
In a 2019 email to author Michael Wolff, Epstein writing, "Trump said he asked me me to resign. Never a member ever. Of course, he knew about the girls, as he asked Galen.
Details surrounding Epstein's death are simply too suspicious to brush off. We're supposed to accept that a man with connections to presidents and global leaders suddenly chose to end his life right before his trial began? Why did every camera near his cell mysteriously stop working at that exact moment? And why were the guards nowhere to be found? The timing feels a little too perfect to believe.
If I had to guess. There's too much circumstantial evidence that leads me to believe that it was an assassination. You know, I know a lot of people think that he committed, a lot of very smart people that I know think he committed suicide. I'm like, there's too many convenient things. The cut wires, the security cameras rather, not working. They weren't cut, right? They just stopped. They didn't function. Security cameras didn't function. The fact that he had shared a cell with this giant former cop who was a murderer, who had multiple people, just giant roided up cop. Like, this is a cellmate. Like, if you wanted to get somebody, hey, look, bro, extra Twinkies, take this guy out. Like, it wouldn't be hard. He's already killed a bunch of people. He was a drug dealer. Did you ever see the guy? Did you ever see the guy who was his cellmate?
No, but it's like
it's kind of hilarious.
It's like when you're a freshman in college and they just put you with somebody, you know?
Bro, if you wanted to get someone killed, you have a high profile witness, okay? High profile witness in the craziest trafficking conspiracy of all time, where a guy who may or may not have been an intelligence asset or an intelligence agent or whatever the fuck he was, or whatever country, this guy he's arrested for trafficking to elites, and then you put him in jail.
Oh my God.
With that guy.
I thought that was the guy that fought Mike Tyson. Remember that dude who read that poem?
Bro, you put him in jail with that guy. All you have to do is get that guy cigarettes and steroids. You tell him, I got you Marlboro Reds and Tren. I got you testosterone replacement for life, even though you're going to still be in jail.
I got you some Marlboro and Test 200s.
Dude, he was found guilty of 4 men, and they put him in a cell with Epstein. Look at the size of that savage.
Big guy.
Giant muscle-bound, steroided up dude, and they put him in a cell with Epstein, and Epstein got strangled.
Epstein might have been.
Not Sherlock Holmes, but I think there might be a connection there.
Epstein was probably trying to slurp him. I bet that dude was such a pervert, dude.
Well, if he didn't kill him, then somebody...
I bet he was such a pervert.
I think somebody killed him. Retired Westchester cop charged with $4 in cocaine deal after bodies dug up on his property. Bro, he buried them in his backyard.
Yeah.
That's a crazy motherfucker.
Oh, that's a good...
And if that isn't strange enough, the FBI continues to insist Epstein never supplied anyone else to powerful figures. That claim seems nearly impossible. Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were running one of the largest trafficking operations in the world, involving hundreds of victims. Yet they say no one else besides Epstein was involved. What about the wealthy visitors traveling to his island? What about what the survivors have said?
He's recognized for 5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, I watched some of your Senate hearing yesterday when Senator Kennedy asked you've seen most of the files, who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these women to besides himself? You replied, according to the transcript, there is no credible information that he trafficked them to anyone else. According to victims who cooperated with the FBI in that investigation, these documents in FBI possession, your possession, detail at least 20 men, including Mr. Jess Staley, CEO of Barclays Bank, who Jeffrey Epstein trafficked victims to. Victims including minors, such as Virginia Roberts Giuffre, may she rest in peace. That list also includes at least 19 other individuals, one Hollywood producer worth a few $100 million, one royal prince, one high-profile individual in the music industry, one very prominent banker, one high-profile government official, one high-profile former politician, one owner of a car company in Italy, one rock star, one magician, at least 6 billionaires, including a billionaire from Canada. We know these people exist in the FBI files, the files that you control. I don't know exactly who they are, but the FBI does. Have you launched any investigations into any of these people, and have you seen these 302 documents?
Sir, I have asked my FBI agents to review the entirety of the Epstein files and bring forth any credible information. And we're working with Congress not only to divulge that information and produce it to you, but any investigations that arise from any credible investigation will be brought. There have been no new materials brought to me launching a new...
It's worth remembering that even before the emails exposed the people involved, J.D. Vance, Kash Patel, and Dan Bongino had all been publicly demanding that the Epstein files be released.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list.
You say that the FBI has Epstein's list. They're sitting on it. Why is the FBI protecting the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list. You don't think that Bill Gates is lobbying Congress night and day to prevent the disclosure of that list?
Some governments around the world may have some material that's related to the Epstein thing. Bill Clinton was knee deep in this, man.
He was knee deep. Yeah, you got to release it. Now what? What changed? They literally campaigned on this. It was part of the platform of MAG.
Before becoming FBI director, Kash Patel openly talked about Epstein and strongly implied that the government was hiding something. Yet now that he's in power, he claims there's nothing to uncover. Meanwhile, Ghislaine Maxwell has only just been interviewed, nearly 6 years after Epstein died. How does someone go from championing transparency to defending the very system that keeps everything hidden? It seems less like Patel changed the establishment and more like the establishment changed Patel.
It's so crazy because when Kash Patel was on here and he was like, there's nothing. And I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I didn't even know what to say. My thought was, and people are like, why didn't you push back more? My thought was like, I'm just going to put this out there and let the internet do its work because there's nothing I can. The guy's saying there's no tapes, there's no video. That doesn't make any sense. Everyone knows it doesn't make any sense. And then he didn't know about the Michael Baden stuff, the autopsy stuff, where it showed that he had 3 broken bones in his neck, which never happens when you hang yourself. Even when you like leap from somewhere with a rope around your neck and it snaps your neck, you never have 3
and
broken
in a prison
bones.
Cell. He's not launching himself off the first floor balcony.
The whole thing was nuts. And then he's like, well, we have a film, we're going to release that film. And the film has a fucking minute missing from it.
Yeah.
Like, do you think we're babies? Like, what is this?
Also, you got people, including Dan Bongino, right, making bank for a couple of years talking about how awful it is, and we got to get this huge conspiracy, and then you release a 2-page memo that says, there's nothing to see here.
Yeah, because you're walking by your bedroom window and you see a little laser, red laser moving across your chest.
Yeah, but it really is. It's so look. You know me, I'm not a conspiracy guy. By
you
nature,
are today.
But I am today. Today, I'm fully on board with this shit.
Everybody's in today.
Yeah, no, but they're actually doing right as we speak, and I find this fascinating. Is that the Assistant Attorney General Todd Blanche is down in Florida for an interview with Ghislaine Maxwell, right? And she's serving 20 years in a Florida prison for trafficking, right?
To who though?
What's that?
To who?
Well, he's down there to interview her.
But I'm saying she's trafficked to
who? She was a co-conspirator of Epstein's, right?
But don't you have to have a person who you're trafficking to?
Exactly. And they talked about the victims somewhat during her trial. It was it was a very difficult trial in the sense of, they're trying to protect certain victims and others were coming forward. But, my surprise was nobody from DOJ has ever, according to her legal team, nobody has ever interviewed her.
However, clues are beginning to surface about who Epstein might have actually been working for. On a recent episode of Joe Rogan's podcast, a former CIA operative appeared and explained how individuals like Epstein, who have access to powerful people, are often targeted or used by intelligence agencies. By placing someone in Epstein's position, they can gain leverage over the elite figures in his network.
There's fucking pinhole cameras all over that house.
Yeah. You have to start from that perception, right? Because again, if anything else, you're just being naive if you think, no, there's nothing. Again,
you got to take it down to the bare beams.
Yeah.
What do you think that was all about? Who do you think was involved in that? Do you think it was the Mossad? Do you think it was some rogue intelligence agency in America? Was it a coordinated effort?
You know what? I know this. There's a lot of talk about. Did he have some sort of intel connection? Right. That from my perspective, it's complete speculation. But I will say, like from an operational perspective, I have no idea. Was it Mossad? Was it anybody? Who knows?
Right.
But from an operational perspective, if you see a guy like this who's super connected and all the way back to 2008 was like his first trial, right? So he's had a long history of these problems. But if you know that he's kind of engaged in a variety of things, as an example, if I'm Chinese intel, right, and I just read the goddamn entertainment news, and there's these rumors and allegations of high-level people flying off to his island, I'm going to think that's interesting because potentially, if I could get an accessed source there, if I can get somebody right inside that operation, whether it's Ghislaine Maxwell, or whether it's Epstein himself, whether it's somebody who's just on the outskirts of it, maybe I'll start picking up some pretty interesting leverageable information on people that maybe I want to.
Joe Rogan went even further. He suggested that Epstein was part of a full-scale blackmail operation and that his real purpose was gathering intelligence. When you examine the guest lists, the frequent secret meetings, the unexplained access, and the way institutions consistently made exceptions for him, it stops feeling like speculation and starts looking like the only explanation that makes sense.
You just get real and say,
if I gun to your head, what do you think your best assessment of what Epstein, who was Epstein, who was he working for?
Well, I don't know, right? So I'm just guessing. Everybody wants to say he was working for the Mossad. He very well could have been. He could have been working for the CIA. He could have been a guy who was on his own, but also working with them, right? Like a guy that they used, but they never fully endorsed.
Like an asset?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a guy who could move money around.
Right.
He definitely...
Good at laundering money.
The moving money around stuff was very weird because he had money through no way that anybody could ever explain.
Yeah.
He had an enormous amount of money through no way that nobody could ever explain. Which, if you're state funded, you're funded by Israel and Israel's funded by America, and there's also NGOs and nonprofits, and there's ways to move money around where you can give this guy money.
Yeah.
So he was like Weinstein, who is an economist, right? Weinstein's a legitimate mathematician.
Eric?
Yeah. So when Eric met him, his first inclination was he was a fraud.
He's a construct.
Yeah, a construct. And did he tell you the whole story about the girl sitting on his lap?
Yep.
So he was obviously nerd fishing. He was fishing for nerds, and I think he caught a lot of nerds in that net. There's a lot of those 100%. Guys that wound up going to that island. They probably thought, this is great. We get to party.
Nothing's free.
And they probably felt like they were rock stars because they get to hang out with the intellectual elite on an island with a guy who's just a billionaire philanthropist who's eccentric, who just loves women. He's a professed bachelor, and it all seemed too good to be true.
It's so true.
Because it was.
Yeah.
So I think he was an asset, whether or not it was for the Mossad strictly, or Israel strictly, or the United States strictly, whether it was a CIA thing, whatever, I don't know. But I think it was probably a part of a blackmail compromise.
The overlap between government interests and Epstein's world is becoming harder to deny. And the instant anyone gets close to the truth, the pushback is fierce. Marjorie Taylor Greene found that out the hard way. She was attacked as soon as she demanded the files be released. She says she's trying to expose a circle of wealthy and powerful elites, and even vowed that if given the chance, she'll stand on the House floor and read every alleged name aloud. She's also voiced strong support for Epstein's victims, calling them patriots and insisting that no one, no matter how rich, should be shielded from justice.
Questioned who and what country is putting so much pressure on Trump to keep the Epstein files hidden. And you included a picture about donations from pro-Israel lobbying group AIPAC. What are you trying to say there?
Well, I think it's the question that many Americans are asking, especially when we saw information recently come out in these emails that the Oversight Committee that I serve on has released. And we saw Jeffrey Epstein with ties to Ehud Barak. We saw him making business deals with them, also business deals that involved the Israeli government, and seems to have led into their intel agencies. And I think the right question is to ask is, was Jeffrey Epstein working for Israel? And I'm proud to say I don't take money from AIPAC. I don't take money from any special group of people. I'm just representing my district and the American people. And so that's what I was referring to.
I just want to be clear. Are you saying Israel is pushing the President of the United States to cover up the Epstein files? And what evidence do you have that is the case?
I simply just asked out loud, is there a foreign government? It could be any foreign government, but is a foreign government pushing to keep this covered up? Because people just don't understand the big fight against.
Well, you had AIPAC up there. It was pretty clear which government you were talking about.
That I'm questioning that government in particular and questioning any other foreign government.
Oh, it's pretty clear which government. Yeah, what's wrong with talking about that government? The evidence is straight up. It's right there. I mean, what's the problem with it? It's just so ridiculous, and it's just crazy. It's I really believe that the Israel-Epstein connection is one of the reasons why not just Trump, but a lot of the conservative media was so reluctant to actually go full on in the release.
And speaking of people defending themselves, billionaire Peter Thiel recently admitted he was friends with Epstein, but insists he had no idea about any wrongdoing. That explanation is becoming harder to take seriously. Epstein was infamous precisely because of his crimes. If that was his reputation, how could anyone around him claim they didn't know?
That Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, who's currently on a tour talking about the Antichrist everywhere, and Steve Bannon were all listed in this.
You know what the craziest is? I saw this clip from Joe Rogan recently. I forget exactly what I was watching. I was watching someone on YouTube. Talk about Peter Thiel, and they unearthed a clip from fairly recent, maybe, where Peter Thiel went on Joe Rogan. Thiel was like, yeah, I knew Jeffrey Epstein. Like, I have connections to him. And Joe Rogan was like, oh yeah, before he was arrested, right? And Peter Thiel was like, no, I hung out with him after he was arrested and was like a known.
I met Epstein a few times as well, and I think.
How'd you get introduced?
It was Reid Hoffman in Silicon Valley introduced us in 2014, but it was basically didn't ask enough questions about it. I think there were sort of a lot of things where it was fraudulent. I do think Epstein knew a lot about taxes.
And you were introduced to him. How was he described to you?
He was described as one of the smartest tax people in the world.
Interesting.
And it probably was my moral weakness that I.
Well, how could you have known back then? He had never been arrested.
No, this was 2014. It was post arrest.
Oh, so his arrest was the first arrest, right?
Yeah,
which was like
2007, 08.
And it's like, what do you mean? Why would you admit that you actively still hung out with him after he was a convicted? This is
the 2025 batch of leaked Epstein emails caused a political shockwave, primarily because of how often Donald Trump was mentioned. Tucked within the records were statements written by Epstein himself, and they were filled with bitterness and clear hostility.
At least 20,000 plus pages of other Epstein documents. The Republicans' additional release of documents made him look awful. For starters, in this new batch, Trump's name appeared over 1,600 times. Wow, these are not casual mentions either. In one email, Epstein wrote, I have met some very bad people, none as bad as Trump, not one decent cell in his body. Whoa, it's gotta hurt when Jeffrey Epstein calls you a bad guy. That's like an airport muffin accusing you of being dry. This weekend, one of those emails captured the nation's hearts and minds. It was from Jeffrey Epstein's brother, Mark, who emailed Jeff in 2018 telling him to ask Jeff's friend, Steve Bannon, quote, if Putin has the photos of Trump blowing Bubba. I don't want to talk about this. I mean, I try to be a good person. You know, I taught Sunday school. We have standards at the Late Show, but we also have a self-imposed mandate to talk a lot about what a lot of people are talking about. And for the past few days, a lot of people have been talking about this email. Who is this lucky Bubba? Mark Epstein released a statement saying this email was, quote, part of a humorous private exchange between two brothers, and any attempt to conflate that reference with President Clinton misrepresents both the purpose and the tone of the original correspondence.
Yeah, because there's probably a lot like that. And those kind of honeypot operations, they let these freaks know, like, hey, you're going to be safe with me. Charlie will take care of everything. Look, Bill Clinton used to come here. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And we're going to go to the island.
And that's a big endorsement. It's like presidents were here, so it must be a secure area.
Exactly.
I can get
we
down.
are on the island with Bill.
Yeah.
This is fine.
And
We're
all these
fine.
girls show up, and you're like, well, this is Christmas in July.
Bill is really interested in string theory. He'd like to talk to you about string theory. So you're sitting down there having cocktails while Bill Clinton's getting a massage from some girl who's rubbing her tits against the back of his head while she's massaging him.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, that's really interesting. Hey, I'm kind of tired. I'm gonna take a nap.
Another thing about black holes.
Yeah. And I think they all thought that it was this lovely exchange of powerful people and brilliant people, and then they were just getting dirt on all of them. Guys cheating.
So what's your take? Are these files just scratching the surface? Or is something even bigger still lurking in the dark? Share your thoughts in the comments, because this discussion is far from over. If you want the truth to keep coming out, then hit subscribe right now, because Taylor Tells All doesn't hold back.